What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Very Cold Lasagna, the podcast that houses a safe and open listening platform for casual, cold, and even the dumbest takes on the world of WWE, AEW, the NFL, and the wide world of pro wrestling and sports in general. I'm your host, DylanLasagna. Welcome to today's episode number 84 of this freezing cold podcast that always houses the very cold lasagna inside that very cold fridge. Today, we got a good show for you all because we're going to be talking about the next round of the NFL playoffs, the Divisional Playoffs. It is happening this weekend, the semifinals of, well, the NFL playoffs. So, the Super Wildcard weekend has come and gone, and now we're moving on to the divisional round, the semifinals of the NFL playoffs. And, unlike Super Wildcard weekend, the weekend that was supposed to have these good matchups, but then it ended up not having those good matchups because it became blowout city. Here, on paper, yes, it looks like there will be some good matchups. Obviously, again, it could turn out to be blowout city, or it can actually turn out to be these good close games, these high drama games that we're supposed to be getting. But anyway, when you're looking at this divisional playoffs, in all honesty, anything can happen. Anything can happen when you're looking at these teams. Like, literally, any one of these teams can literally move on to the AFC Championship and the NFC Championship games the following week. And that's what makes this second round pretty exciting, And that's why I'm more so excited for this set of games than Super Wildcard weekend ended up being. For first round, the playoffs was all high and dandy. It's like NFL Christmas. It's like the third and final chapter of the NFL season. Well, actually, the fourth like epilogue is the Super Bowl. But either way, this portion right here, the semifinals, it ended up being more interesting than the wild card round itself. And these games are going to be something. They have a lot of interesting plot holes that are going to be filled come the end of the divisional round. So, looking at these slated games, you kick things off with the AFC side of things. The Cincinnati Bengals going to travel to the top seed Tennessee Titans coming off that first round bye. This game's going to kick off at 1:30 on CBS. And it's probably going to be loud and rowdy in Nashville in their first home playoff game after the bye since 2008. And the Titans going into this game all well rested, having clinched the AFC South for the first time since last year. Obviously clinching the top seed for the first time since 2008. And again, this is their first game since week 18 that they're going to be playing. They beat the Houston Texans 28-25 to clinch that top seed and get that much needed time to heal up and to rest, get some of their key players back. But they wanted to get this bye, especially to get their MVP back in the fold, and that is one King Derrick Henry. So when it came to the Titans 2021, heading into these NFL playoffs, they started the season 2-2. They had a blowout loss at home to the Arizona Cardinals, and then you lose on the road in overtime to, of all teams, the New York Jets. Yes, they lose to the Jets in overtime in kind of embarrassing fashion. But then you managed to win your next 6. Okay, you seem to be going back on track. But then during that winning streak, you lose Derrick Henry for the regular season with a serious foot injury, and then they tried to compensate that by signing running back Adrian Peterson, but that failed for 3 games. So eventually, in time, the Titans offense would struggle without their king. They would lose a couple of games. And even when they were winning games, they had to get in the clutch. They would have some they need to have some clutch moments and have things go their way, because the offense was really kind of slugging through some of these games with Ryan Tannehill and no running game to speak of, other than the fact that, well, the running back community was just not great. I mean, they had some decent performances from Deontay Foreman in the last weeks of the regular season, but prior to that, yeah, not so great. And then also adding to the fact that you had short-term injuries to your receivers, A.J. Brown, and then Julio Jones on offense, as well as a pretty subpar offensive line. And then on defense, you also had some key injuries to there as well. But then when you hit December, some players would return. They would also stay healthy. And then when some more players would get back on the field and stay there on the field, staying healthy, the Titans were producing again. Obviously, there's still some issues with the consistency part, but it was enough to clinch their second straight AFC South title and clinch that top seed. So, when it comes to their offense, Ryan Tannehill, he's running the show, and he has some up weeks and some down weeks, but it's the postseason, and y'all remember last season where he just didn't have a good game against the Baltimore Ravens, and he had that crazy ass run in 2019, going all the way to the AFC Championship game, just falling short to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. But here, it's going to be key to how far he could take the Tennessee Titans into the postseason now that he has the top seed in the AFC. So it's going to be interesting how far Ryan Tannehill can take these Titans deep into the postseason. Then also in the receiving game, you obviously have A.J. Brown, who is clearly one of the top receivers in their offense. And then obviously Derrick Henry, he may or may not come back for this game, but all signs are pointing towards him coming back. And then they added Julio Jones, trading for him in the offseason. But honestly, he's been a disappointing addition to the receiving game just because he hasn't been able to stay healthy at all. I mean, a lot of it has to do with his age by now, but yeah, it's just been not a good sign. It's just not been a good addition to this Titans offense. So when it comes to their defense, it's been a 50-50 mix. Their secondary, it has corners Janoris Jenkins and Buster Screen, and free safety Kevin Byard running the show. They're okay, but they have a tendency to lapse in coverages, give up big plays. But other than that, they're all right. But the front seven has been a strength of late, and they're doing a pretty good job getting to the passer. But if there's one thing that the Tennessee Titans are not so great at, and that Cincinnati can exploit in this matchup, is the secondary that I just mentioned and the Titans' offensive line. So for Cincinnati, heading to this game, they're fresh off their wild card win against the Las Vegas Raiders. And just to talk a little bit about that game, they had a hot start. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, pretty much the entire offense. They were red hot. It seemed like it was going to head towards a blowout. But then they started to cool down a little bit, and they let the Raiders get back in the game. And obviously we knew what happened with that controversial whistle touchdown with Joe Burrow. But even after that, they were really cooling off in the second half. They were playing a little too conservatively. They were doing a lot of short passes. Joe Burrow kind of like simmered down a little bit. And the defense, in spite of all the injuries that they're having, they had to prevent a furious Raiders team from tying the game, forcing overtime in the last 2 minutes of the game. And they did so with linebacker Jermaine Pratt intercepting Derek Carr near the goal line to seal the Bengals win 26-19. But, obviously, signs of concern for the Bengals with those injuries on defense. So, going into this game, the Bengals, they have to find some way to continually attack the scoreboard. They got to be more aggressive on offense. And then for the Titans, it's the potential return of the king, Derrick Henry. This is what they wanted to buy for, is to get their king back, get their guy, Derrick Henry, back on the field for this playoff run. When you look at their keys to victory for the Bengals, it's the same as last week. Attack the secondary with Joe Burrow and this explosive passing attack, and then that offensive line, especially the right side, has to protect Joe Burrow at all costs. This is a Titans secondary that's not particularly that great. So for the Bengals, this is something that they can attack easily. If they're aggressive, if they continue to put points on the board, if their mind and hearts are into it, especially with Zach Taylor, their head coach, they can definitely do it. For the Tennessee Titans, it's been a while since Derrick Henry has played a game, so might as well ease him back into game time. And then when you ease them back in with like a couple of plays, pound the rock with him. Let him rock this. Let him steal the show. And then obviously you got to get Ryan Tannehill involved. I mean, that's what he's there for. You got to let him make plays, balancing out with Derrick Henry. And then on defense, they got to get some timely plays in on that Bengals offense, because if they don't, then they're screwed as hell. So the Titans, they have the top seed, sure. I mean, that's what they needed it for, to get Derrick Henry back. But I've yet to see that they've earned it. They've had these stretches of good, bad, pretty much like half of the teams I've talked about on this show. So even with the return of the king, the Titans are going to need a lot more from Ryan Tannehill, this offensive line in the secondary, pretty much everybody in this game, especially Ryan Tannehill, to beat this explosive Cincinnati Bengals team. So until I see that, I'm going with Cincinnati to go to their first AFC Championship game since forever. So call me crazy, but I'm going to pick Cincinnati in an upset. So then in the NFC Divisional Playoff game number 1, in the Saturday night capper, we have the San Francisco 49ers as the 6th seed, going up to the top-seeded Green Bay Packers in cold-ass Lambeau Field on Fox. So this is a week 3 rematch of the 49ers home opener in week 3. The Niners erased a fourth-quarter 24-14 deficit and turned that into a 28-27 lead at the 2-minute warning. But that was the problem for the 49ers. They left Aaron Rodgers so much time on the clock that he was just picking apart that Niners weak-ass secondary. And once they burned all that time on the clock, they set up Mason Crosby to kick a game-winning field goal and break the hearts of us Niners fans as the Packers beat the Niners 30-28 on Levi's turf. So again, this is the Packers' first game since Week 18. They got the top seed. They're 13-5. But first, let's talk about the 49ers. Obviously, 6th seed in the playoffs. They're the lowest remaining seed after the Philadelphia Eagles got their ass kicked by the Tampa Bay Bucks. So going into this game, the Niners, they kind of have a little bit of momentum of sorts. In Week 18, they beat the Rams in a comeback to clinch this wild card spot. And then they had to open their playoff slate going to the 3-seeded NFC East champion Dallas Cowboys in Jerry's World. It wasn't really much of a home field road disadvantage for the Niners, because it was pretty much like a kind of like sea of red for San Fran in Arlington. So in that game, you got strong performances from the running game from Elijah Mitchell and Deebo Samuel, and then the defensive line was just all over Dak Prescott in annihilating that so-called vaunted Cowboys offensive line. But then one critical mistake from Jimmy Garoppolo, a interception in the fourth quarter, that was like the rallying cry. That was like the ignition for Dak Prescott and the boys to get back in this game, to rally the troops together and try to take this lead. At that point, Niners were leading 23-17, not 23-17, 23-7, and then all of a sudden Jimmy G throws that pick, and then here comes the Cowboys slowly and surely marching their way thanks to their MVP, yes, Nickelodeon valuable player, Dak Prescott. So the Niners were able to hold off the Dallas Cowboys, and a lot of it had to do because, well, the Cowboys are just terrible at game managing. They just made so many mistakes, and another mistake that they made was letting Dak Prescott run it down the middle and try to spike it with less than 5 seconds left. So the Niners held on thanks to the Cowboys' stupidity, 23-17, to go to Lambeau Field and face the Green Bay Packers. So, the Packers, they're coming off their another recent successful season, going 13-4, laying the claim to the top seed in the NFC for the second straight year. But you got to say, with this Green Bay Packers team, the 2021 Packers, it's been a roller coaster of sorts, especially with Aaron Rodgers, with all the media attention, all the drama that's been pointing towards this man, this bad man. It's been kind of crazy to see, crazy to see, in light of all the drama towards Aaron Rodgers, all the hate towards this man. Some of it deservedly so, of what went down, in the past year. Heck, they're still the top seed in the NFC and one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl in February. So, if you don't know what I'm talking about, let's go through a brief recap of what Aaron Rodgers exactly had done off the field in the past year during the season. So obviously, nothing too crazy, but it was around the time of the 2021 NFL Draft. I even talked about this last year. News broke out that Aaron Rodgers wanted out of the Packers. That report later was debunked by the Packers themselves and Aaron Rodgers. He wanted out. He was like confused. He was mad about them picking Jordan Love in the previous draft of 2020, and he was furious. But then, just because the Packers and Rodgers debunked it, it's still in the minds of everybody that a trade this next offseason it may still be on the table, still being speculated by just about everyone, not just throughout the regular season, but right now. So anything is possible. So anyway, another incident that occurred was that Aaron Rodgers testing positive for COVID before the Week 9 matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs, and he was also found lying about his vaccination status. And during this time, when back in the preseason, he mentioned that he was immunized, whatever that means. I guess he's trying to say that he's immune to COVID. So he was also found committing multiple violations of the NFL's COVID protocols for unvaxxed players, like not wearing masks in press conferences or on the sidelines or going to parties. It's Rodgers' decision. I don't really care what he does, but rules are rules. But it is what it is. So all this drama, all this banter with Aaron Rodgers, in spite of all that, he was still performing at an MVP level. He has a big case. He has a very strong case as to why he should be the back-to-back MVP for this year. He was still performing at a very high level. His supporting cast of Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, and then you had reserves like Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Allen Lazard, A.J. Dillon, performing at a high level as well. And then defensively, even though you didn't have your key players like Jair Alexander at corner, Zadarius Smith, and Whitney Merciless at linebacker, they would be lost for the season at some point during the regular season. The Packers defense has played solid against their opponent, and even they were doing bad against the opposition, Aaron Rodgers was still there to bring them back into the game. So, talking about this 13-4 record, they didn't start that way. They didn't start out winning. They actually started out pretty shitty. They went to the land of All Elite Wrestling because New Orleans was in a terrible time during the month of September, and they got their ass kicked by the New Orleans Saints. And that turned out to be a wake-up call to the Packers, because they went on a much larger winning streak, winning the majority of the games. And they only wound up losing to the Chiefs without Aaron Rodgers, and they had to start Jordan Love. They wound up losing to the Vikings on a last-second field goal, and then they lost to the Lions when they already had the top seed and they didn't have anything to play for. So overall, this Packers season, again, very successful. They got another good year out of Aaron Rodgers and another good year out of playing everyone else. Now the question is, can they follow that up with a Super Bowl win? That begins on Saturday night in Lambeau Field against the 49ers. Some storylines heading into this game, however, for the 49ers, the health of three key players. Defensively, Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. Nick Bosa got kneed in the head by accident by one of his own teammates in the second quarter, and he never came back in the second half. So despite that, the 49ers pass rush was still pretty damn good against the Cowboys offensive line, getting to Prescott for much of that second half. But against Aaron Rodgers, it's going to be a tough battle if Nick Bosa is not able to play and is not able to clear concussion protocol for Saturday night's game. And then Fred Warner, he suffered a ankle injury, but it seems like he's doing okay. He's good to go for Saturday. So that's some positive news for the Niners defense. And then on offense, Jimmy Garoppolo. He suffered a shoulder sprain. I don't know where he suffered it from, but with Jimmy Glass, like he suffers a lot of injuries. So you got Jimmy Garoppolo suffering not just a thumb injury, but you also have him suffering a shoulder injury. And it seems like he's going to play, but with those cold conditions, like that may numb him. That may affect him a lot. And then this 49ers secondary is once again going up against Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. Is this going to be the same 49ers secondary that's going to get torched like they did in Week 3 against the Packers, or is it the Niners secondary that that does get torched, but not as torched as they did like for most of the season? So that's going to remain the question. And then that Packers offensive line that's getting David Bakhtiari back, if they hadn't already in Week 18 against the Lions, going up against that 49ers defensive line, even without Nick Bosa, is still a pretty formidable front. So that's going to be a tall task for the Niners to go up against that Packers offensive line and try to mount some pressure onto Aaron Rodgers. So it's going to be a big get for the Niners. And then for the Packers, on defense, you're getting Jair Alexander back, you're getting Zadarius Smith back, you're getting Whitney Merciless back, and it's a big get. Those are big returns for the defense. Now, they haven't played in a while, and how much will rust affect them? How much will it impact the defense? Like, what's the rotation going to be? Are they going to be starting? That remains to be the question. So, how much will their returns impact this defense? And will it impact this defense is going to remain the question. Some keys to victory for both teams, starting with the 49ers. You need to attack this Packers team with the running game. And it isn't just because of the weather. It's because the Packers' weakness still remains the run defense. Like, they're not very good at stopping the run. They couldn't stop Dalvin Cook. And they certainly couldn't stop the 49ers during that NFC Championship game. And certainly they still have their problems trying to stop the run, even during the games that they were winning in. So this should be a similar formula for Kyle Shanahan to exploit against Green Bay's soft spot. You got a good rookie running back in Elijah Mitchell. Deebo Samuel, for whatever reason, still likes to run the ball. But either way, this is a weakness that the Packers should definitely be exploited by. Jimmy Garoppolo, injured or not, he has to play a near perfect game. I mean, he did okay for 3 quarters. I mean, he didn't fuck up the joint. But then it was the fourth quarter interception that nearly had the Cowboys complete their comeback. So he needs to play infinitely times better. He can't be like sailing the ball too high. He can't try to like make some stupid interceptions like wide open. He can't be fumbling the ball. I mean, even though the offensive line protected him pretty well, not allowing a sack, but still. He has to play and act like this could be his last game in San Francisco, even though it clearly is going to be his last season. But still, you gotta play like this is gonna be like your job is on the line. You gotta play with aggression, make some crazy ass decisions with the ball, find your receivers in stride, and they will take care of the rest. Just do something, Jimmy G. Like play like your NFL 49er career is on the line. Do something. Make like surprise me in a good way on Saturday. For the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, I mean, it's simple for them. Do their thing. Burn the 49ers secondary into the ground. Smash them. Super smash them. It's not that hard. The Packers secondary has to limit the 49ers' biggest weapon right now, and that's not George Kittle. It's Deebo Samuel. He's a threat on the run, and he's a threat in the air. So the Packers have to do everything in their power to shut him down and force others like Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Jawan Jennings, pretty much everyone not named Deebo to step up. So, for the Niners, they lucked out of a collapse in the first round thanks to the Cowboys fucking things up for themselves even more. But they're not playing the Cowboys for the second straight week. They're not playing a team that doesn't implode as hard as the Dallas Bears. This could be the week that the 49ers playoff prophecy, yes, these delusional playoff hopes, this could be the week that their playoff prophecy gets fulfilled. And what do I mean by playoff prophecy? Well, let me tell you. They make this a crazy second half push, and then they get their playoff spot in week 18, and then first round comes, they get smashed, only they don't get smashed in the first round. So then they get to the second round, and then they finally get what's coming to them. Jimmy G, or Jimmy Garbage Fail, as we like to call him here. The Jimmy Garbage Fail side of Jimmy G comes out, and the fluky secondary, they get what's coming to them. A super smashing of epic proportions in the cold ass weather of Green Bay, and it could be snowing too, by Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, who are going to move on to the NFC Championship game and set the stage for the 49ers to finally move on from Jimmy Garbage Fail. So I'm rolling with the Green Bay Packers. But hey, every time I pick against the Niners here on this show, and as a Niner fan, the 49ers end up winning. So here I am again, picking against the 49ers. So you can hate me all you want, Niners fans, but the truth shall set you free. So the playoff prophecy may finally get fulfilled on Saturday when the 49ers get super smashed by the Green Bay Packers in cold-ass Lambeau Field. And I know, they have their history of beating Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. Fun fact, it's going to be soon the 10th anniversary of Colin Kaepernick putting an ass whooping on the Green Bay Packers in the 2012 Divisional Playoffs, and it's a 2-year anniversary of the Niners putting an ass whooping on the Packers in the NFC Championship game in 2019. So that narrative, though, and that being said, that historic narrative changes on Saturday when the 49ers playoff prophecy that ends in a super smashing of them getting super smashed happens Saturday night in Green Bay. The Green Bay Packers are going to super smash ultimate the 49ers and go to the NFC Championship game. So then we get to the Sunday slate of games. The LA Rams, the 4-seeded LA Rams, take on the 2-seeded Tampa Bay Bucks on NBC in the afternoon at 12 o'clock. This is a rematch of Week 3. It was a potential early season playoff preview. It saw the Rams at home win 34-24. I mean, it seemed like it was a close game. It seemed that way. but actually it wasn't. The Tampa Bay Bucks, it seemed like they had the clamps on Matthew Stafford, but slowly but surely, that wasn't the case. The Bucks defense couldn't contain that Rams high-powered offense. Matthew Stafford would go on to have a 4 touchdown game. Tom Brady would have a nice game too, but it was just clear that the Bucks offense alone couldn't keep up, couldn't get the entire team up to speed against the LA Rams. I mean, obviously, things have changed since then, and both teams are different. But still, this is a rematch of epic proportions here. A little bit of revenge potential for the Tampa Bay Bucks, with a trip to the NFC title game on the line. Looking back at both of their wild card matchups, for the Rams, they're fresh off that Week 18 loss to the 49ers at home, and going into that Monday night wild card game, the first one at home in SoFi Stadium, and it's the first ever Monday night playoff game. They were looking to get out of that bad slump, get that taste out of their mouth where Matthew Stafford completely choked away a chance to eliminating the 49ers out of playoff contention in the last week of the regular season, and overall just a terrible choke job in that game. So the Rams trying to bounce back from that game against a also struggling Arizona Cardinals team as the 5 seed. So I guess that was the medicine that they needed. That Niner game, that choke job, was kind of like the medicine that they needed, because facing an Arizona Cardinals team that was also struggling, it was just the right matchup for LA, because the Rams completely dominated the Cardinals from start to finish. The Cardinals defense was just unable to stop Matthew Stafford and that entire offense. And Kyler Murray, he was just making mistake after mistake, throwing a wide open interception for a pick 6. And the LA defense was just hounding all over his ass all night long. And the Rams would eliminate the Arizona Cardinals 34-11. Meanwhile, for the Tampa Bay Bucks, pretty similar manner. They opened their playoff slate against the 7th-seeded Philadelphia Eagles a day earlier on a Sunday morning. Right from the gate, Tom Brady and the offense completely destroyed the Philadelphia Eagles. That defense just had no answers for Tom Brady and the Bucks offense. And, Tampa's defense, led by their front 7, they made life a living hell for quarterback Jalen Hurts, who also made some poor decisions with the football. And the Bucks easily won that game 31-15. That 15 points was just pure garbage. Pure garbage points for the Philadelphia Eagles. Final score be damned. So, going to this game for the Bucks especially, they have to keep an eye on their players on offense, because they're losing players. They're really losing players at the wrong time. They have to keep an eye on their lineman, Ryan Jensen, their center, and Tristan Wirfs, he's the tackle. They won that game in the first round, but those 2 injuries they could be costly if they don't play on Sunday. You saw Tom Brady, after both of them left, take at least 2 sacks against the Eagles defensive line. That wasn't getting any pressure on Tom Brady prior to them leaving. So you have to monitor their health, the health of those 2 linemen, as well as the health of their other 2 running backs in Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette, they haven't activated him off IR, and then Ronald Jones still has a leg injury, I believe. So a lot of injuries all around for this Tampa Bay Bucks offense. And then for the Rams, it's all about Matthew Stafford putting together a second straight good game, mistake-free, no mistakes. Some keys to victory for the Rams: continuing on with Matthew Stafford, no mistakes. You got to just relax, keep it cool. Just find Cooper Kupp, find Odell Beckham, find them in stride. Don't overthink things. just let loose against this leaky Bucs secondary. Trying to find a formula of success that you did all the way back in week 3. Sure, these teams are different from back then, but try to find what worked best in week 3 and try to apply it here. That Rams defensive line has to put heavy pressure on the Bucs defense. Not the Bucs defense, the Bucs offensive line, especially if Tristan Wirfs and Ryan Jensen don't play. So if they don't play, then this Rams front seven, especially Aaron Donald and Von Miller, they can get a lot of heat and some good sacks on Tom Brady if these two linemen for the Bucs don't play. So for the Tampa Bay Bucs, you gotta hope that you get some of your key players back, especially those two linemen. But whether or not they do, you gotta get big games for your reserve running backs, Keyshawn Vaughn and Giovanni Bernard, if your other two running backs, Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, don't play in this game. They did pretty solid against the Eagles. The Eagles run defense. They did pretty all right. But obviously you want to have Fournette and Ronald Jones there too to give you some stability at running back, because against the Rams run defense, I mean, they're better than the Eagles, but not by a better margin. But still, you want to have a healthy Bucs offense. And then the secondary has to find a way to contain this high-powered Rams offense, because if they couldn't do it back in week 3 and you gave up some garbage points to the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think some of the starters were still there anyway, then you're going to have a hard time stopping this red-hot Rams offense. So I know you can't count out Tom Brady just yet. And, the Bucs still have a powerful offense with Mike Evans and Rob Gronkowski, and, their reserve receivers are good if they don't drop the ball. But, there's a lot of questions that persist on the health of their offensive line and the health of their two running backs. And, their secondary is still very suspect. Like, even if they don't, whether or not they have Sean Murphy-Bunting at corner playing in this game. So the Bucs have a lot of concerns, injury, health-wise, going into this game. And for the Rams, you have questions of your own, including with Matthew Stafford, like whether or not he can, string together like consist back-to-back good performances. The Rams still possess a high-octane offense and a solid defense, but most importantly, they're the healthier team. And that fact, that they're healthier, and I think, in my opinion, sure, like, as much as they're NFC West rivals, but in my opinion, just spewing it out there, like, the fact that they're healthier gives them the chance to upset the defending Super Bowl champions in the divisional round. So I'm going with the Rams. Yes, call me crazy, but this is what the NFL playoffs is all about, going crazy. So I'm going to roll with the LA Rams to upset the Tampa Bay Bucs in the divisional round and going to the NFC Championship game. So in the closer of this divisional round, in the AFC side, we have the 3-seeded Buffalo Bills traveling to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs in a rematch of Week 5, as well as a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game. So in the AFC title game, the Chiefs beat the Bills 38-24, total blowout by the Chiefs. And then the Bills returned the favor back in Week 5. Josh Allen completely torched the Chiefs secondary, and then the Bills defense completely laid the smackdown on Patrick Mahomes in a total domination, 38-20 by the Bills. Looking at the Bills wildcard game on Saturday night against the New England Patriots, they were really clicking. Prior to that, they had won the AFC East in Week 18, but then there were a lot of questions surrounding the Bills offense and its supporting cast, because Josh Allen was putting a lot on himself to get them going, to get them going, and because the rest of the Bills offense wasn't really like trying to do their part, aside from I guess Stephon Diggs, it pretty much, I guess, it was the Josh Allen show. But in this game against the New England Patriots, the entire offense clicked. They scored touchdowns on all their possessions. The defense completely made Mac Jones like a rookie in his first playoff game, and they put the brakes on the mac and cheese and forced some turnovers on him en route to a 47-17 ass kicking victory over the New England Patriots in the first round. Meanwhile, for the Kansas City Chiefs, on the next day, they were the AFC West champions heading into this game. They had split their last 2 regular season games, heading into their home matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers as the 7th seed. The offense was back to form, but there were still issues with that secondary. In the midway point of the season, the defense was doing better, but then in the last 2 games of the season, it started to regress back into that early season form. They were having those lapses in coverage again, and the run defense was a primary weak point for this Chiefs defense. But in this game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, granted, in fairness, it's not really good analysis because, well, the Steelers are just not a good playoff team. They only lucked in because the Indianapolis Colts lost, and then the Chargers just decided to, we're not going to let the Raiders play for the tie in Week 18. So they were playing a pretty washed-ass Big Ben Roethlisberger, and the Chiefs defense just completely pounded on his ass. And on offense, Mahomes and company, after a slow start, they just completely destroyed the Pittsburgh defense. And overall, they just assured Big Ben Roethlisberger had a very unhappy ending to his career if he retires. Kansas City put the hammer on the Steelers 42-21 in their wild card game. So, going to this game, obviously, it's a double revenge game. Is it the Chiefs that get revenge on the Bills for Week 5, or is it the Bills that get revenge on the Chiefs for last year's AFC Championship game? And then, this has the potential to be a shootout, but then it also has the potential to be a blowout. So, which offense outduels the other? Is it going to be Mahomes, or is it going to be Josh Allen? It's going to be insane. And, everyone is claiming Kansas City as the true pillar now in the AFC. I like to call them the King of Kings as a pseudo, kind of like the middle ground between pro wrestling and sports. I don't know, I guess it's like that nickname for Triple H. The King of Kings, the King of other kings, whatever. So the Kansas City is like that King of Kings, that wall. If you want to get past me, you got to beat me. So can Josh Allen get his team? Can he lead his team again to get past the AFC's King of Kings in the Kansas City Chiefs? That remains to be seen. So some keys to victory for both teams. For the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen just needs some help from his supporting cast, and he has to do that by not putting so much weight on his shoulders. Once again, and his offensive supporting cast, be it Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, Dawson Knox, Devin Singletary, his offensive line, they got to help him out just like they did in the first round against New England. For the Kansas City Chiefs, that defensive line has to find ways to contain Josh Allen. You got to limit his opportunities to air that ball out. You got to get those Bills offensive possessions fast, furious, and results in 3 and outs. Get him off the field in order to get Patrick Mahomes back on the field to hopefully score as much as possible. As the Chiefs have all this firepower in the league, they have one of the on-paper best offenses with Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and their supporting cast. They have the firepower to beat most teams. But do they have the defense to contain offenses that are just as, if not more powerful than them? Their biggest weakness still remains their run defense and their secondary. So their defense overall. So the Bills have proven this back in Week 5 that they can torch their defense. And, the Bills have also proven this, even in the loss, that they can torch bad defenses, like against elite teams in Tampa Bay Bucks, for example, in Week 14. And then last week against the New England Patriots, they completely torched their asses. I mean, sure, you were playing Mac Jones and the Patriots and their defense that was supposed to be good, but then it wasn't. So, Buffalo can beat this high-powered Kansas City Chiefs offense again. Just that Josh Allen has to play a really good game again. No mistakes, like last time, in the AFC title game. And that Bills defense has to force Mahomes into mistakes. And if they do that, the Bills are going to the AFC Championship game. And just like with the rest of this show, I'm going with another upset. The Bills are going to the AFC title game. And lo and behold, you're getting the Bills hosting the AFC title game against Cincinnati. How crazy is that? How crazy is that? So that was my preview of the AFC and the NFC Divisional Playoffs. Who do you think is going to win this weekend? Who are you going with? Are you going with me or are you going against me? Let me know how you feel about the NFL Divisional Playoff weekend, however you can, and any way you can. But that is it for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna. I am your host, DylanLasagna. Thank you for tuning into this fine episode number 84 of this freezing cold podcast. Make sure you listen to the show and support the show however you can, be it YouTube, the podcast platforms on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts. Follow the show on social media, on Twitter and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. And as always, keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of pro wrestling and sports. Very cold in the fridge that houses the very icy but also spicy lasagna. And until next time, when divisional weekend is all said and done, until then, peace out.